Business Built by Faith podcast shares powerful testimonies and biblical strategies for entrepreneurs who want to put their faith into action and turn purpose into profit.
Because faith without movement is just potential. It's time to put your faith in motion. Now let's build. Welcome to our first episode of the Business Built by Faith podcast, where you'll catch weekly doses of real conversations, powerful testimonies, and practical tools to help you build your business and life that honors God.
We're your hosts, Demetrius and Shay, Lynn, Dixon, a husband and wife duo, entrepreneurs, and kingdom builders who know what it means to start from nothing and build with God.
On today's episode, it's just us. And you know what that means. That means that nothing is off the table. Faith, business, and real life lessons we've learned along the way. Together, we've built a thriving logistics company, Scale Logistics, that serves some of the largest aviation, distribution, and aerospace companies in the world. We've learned firsthand what it takes to trust God in the valley, celebrate Him on the mountaintop, and put Him at the center of every decision we make. Today, we're pulling back the curtain and we're talking about how it all began.
All right. So, Shay, when you look back at those very first days before Scale even had a name, before the website, before the clients, what was the moment that you knew we were stepping into something that God was building?
Honestly, I knew that we were stepping into something that God was building because I was extremely uncomfortable and I didn't want to do it. Let's be honest. Sometimes God will put us in a situation that we don't necessarily want to do.
Right.
And as a person that plans my way to a T, I was like, this is not a part of my 5-year plan. What's going on?
Right.
So I would say I knew immediately that God was in the midst because I didn't want to do it. And He kept opening doors. Honestly, He knew that things were going to be the way they were before we even got into it.
That's right.
Do you remember when it first started, honestly, we had a business already.
Yep.
So we weren't even thinking what's next. We were just thinking about growing that business with our business partners.
Yeah.
And you were still on the truck,
Yep.
which gave us some consistent income. We knew the contract was going to, bring a certain amount.
Yeah.
So because having a brokerage is very sales and commission based, we didn't even think we need to have a plan B or we need to have something else. We just worked the business.
Yeah.
I think the moment that things shifted was when your contract changed.
That's right.
I was not expecting your contract to change to require you to have your own LLC, that you can no longer be like a subcontractor.
Yeah.
But as Minister Tajay says, it was a setup for a setup. It really was. And God was setting us up. And looking back, do you realize kind of how it all played out, that God was setting us up for that? Or what did you think looking back on that?
I mean, when it was taking place, it didn't feel like, we were doing Scale. It just felt like it's another requirement that we have to do. And honestly, we did not want to do it, but it was something obviously in the background that was pushing us towards it that we didn't even know was happening.
Exactly. And I think because your contract changed on the truck, it required to get our LLC. And what ended up happening is a few months later, the business that we were building with our business partners dissolved.
Yeah.
And we were not ready. We were not prepared. We did not think that was going to happen. But God already knew that it was going to happen, and He already had us in place with our LLC.
Yep.
So we're like, I guess we're starting this thing all over again, the two of us.
Yep.
And that's exactly what we did.
That's right.
And looking back, I was a little afraid. Did you have any fear towards restarting and kind of navigating that season of life for us?
Well, the biggest fear for me was definitely not getting a steady paycheck. I got used to that. I knew every 2 weeks the direct deposit was going to hit, and our necessities would be met regardless of whether we moved any loads of our own or not. I always knew that would be the end all be all.
Right.
When I stayed on the truck. But coming off the truck, it was a huge step. But I will say that we got our aha moment or aha sign that what we was doing, making the right steps. When literally probably 3 hours after I turned in the keys to the truck, we got that first email.
Yes.
And the email was one of our biggest freight forwarding contracts that we received up to date. And it was just like, okay, God, obviously we're making the right steps here. So let's run it.
I forgot about that. And honestly, I believe this is why journaling and writing down your prayers is so important, because that's a faith builder even for me now,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Even
true.
this season of us building this ministry, that is a faith builder. Looking back and seeing that God honored us taking the first step. Well, Demetrius really took the first step. He turned his keys in to a truck that provided consistent pay, and we were like, we trust you 1000%. And within 24 hours,
Yep.
I love them suddenly type of answered prayers, because
Yep.
that's when you know that you're on the right path.
Yep.
So,
Well, okay. So looking back now, we locked scale right in the midst of a pandemic, like in the beginning of the pandemic, actually, and in the midst of massive supply chain disruptions. Do you remember how you kept your faith even though things were uncertain, and you no longer had the consistency of me being on the truck?
yeah, I think that I really leaned on a lot of scripture, and I leaned on a lot of stories from the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And I know in Genesis 26, it talks a lot about Isaac being in the famine,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
And Isaac having to, like, Isaac wanting to go into Egypt instead of staying where he was at in the famine, and God being like, no. And so I think the challenge for me to keep my faith during that time is because I wanted to take things on myself.
Yeah.
I wanted to find my Egypt, which would have been taking a job or my husband going back on the truck.
Mm-hmm.
And I think saying that we have faith is really, really easy to say.
Yeah.
But when your faith is being tested and you're in a season where things don't look like what you think they should look like,
Yeah.
I think that is when you build up a certain faith muscle that now when I have to step out on faith, it's easy to step out on faith. I'm like, oh, I believe God for this. I'm
Yeah.
standing on his word.
Yeah.
But back then, not knowing the next steps, it was scary.
Yeah.
Because there's a different type of faith. There's a faith when you know that you don't have enough money or that you're building something, but you get a paycheck every week.
Yeah.
And there's faith where you don't know where your next paycheck is coming from.
Yeah.
You don't know where your revenue is coming from, and you still have children and people to provide for.
Yeah.
Now that's a different type of thing. What did that feel like for you in terms of your faith? Because you were the one that was providing, and when business had just started and I wasn't taking a salary, we were good because you were taking care of us.
Yeah, I mean, my faith had to be 10-10. I had to just really know that God was our supply, and I had made the right decision to step away from the truck. Even if in the beginning I didn't think I was, I had to know.
Right.
My faith lies in God. It don't lie in this truck. It don't lie in this other company. It lies in whatever God is promised that he's going to do with this business. So
yeah, and honestly, I think a turning point for us throughout this whole process was after we got that harvest, right? Mm-hmm. After the harvest came and we were obedient and we took that step of obedience, I think the challenge was that we were met with famine right after.
Yeah.
Like, we had a season where we were just making more money than we've ever made in business, and it was such a blessing. But we had a season where things were very, very challenging for us. Mm-hmm. And I always go back to that scripture, James 1:4, where the perseverance finishes its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. And that not lacking anything sticks out to me because back then, when we went through that season of famine, we didn't realize that God was still doing a work in us, that there were some things that he needed to strip from us. There were some things that he needed for us to be able to get. It was some people that he needed us to let go in order to take us to our next season of elevation. And I don't think we realized that then. I was very much like, why are you doing this to me, Lord? Like, what's going on? I'm doing everything you required of me. Why are we going through this season?
Yeah.
What was that like for you? Were you feeling those same thoughts, or did you know 1000% that the Lord was going to bring us through and you were just waiting on your time?
I've always known that God was going to bring us through. My faith has always been, no matter what, as long as I do what the word requires me to do, God is going to always do his part.
Yeah.
So I always, things can always look dark and bleak, but I always know, and my faith is always that God is always going to take care of us.
Yeah.
So that, that's
and
where
I think that benefited us too, because we've had seasons where your faith might have been lower than mine and vice versa. And we were able to kind of pull each other up. I think a moment that really stands out for me is when we were going through that season, we didn't even have really money to give or sow, but we were still tithing faithfully. and we were still sowing. And I think that because of your faith, you remember that time we were at a revival,
Yeah.
and they were like, give a seed. And I asked you, I'm like, what you want to give a miracle seed? What would that seed be? And when you said the amount, I was like, whoa, that is a miracle seed. A
Yeah.
miracle seed. Where's my tambourine? That was a miracle seed. And I was a little afraid, but I didn't give begrudgingly. I just was a little bit afraid. For you, in that moment, what was that conversation like with you and God? Because you were believing something bigger. What was that conversation like?
That conversation was simply, I know I'm planting in fertile ground,
Yeah,
and I know every seed that I plant is going to reap a reward.
that's right.
So I planted it with the mindset that God, you gave us this business. We know what the vision is for this business. We know that only you can make it do what we want, what we need for it to do. So here you go.
Yes.
I'm gonna give you something to work with.
Yes. And the harvest came, and just like Isaac, we got back 100-fold what we gave in that miracle seed offering. And that was a faith builder for me, because I believe our sowing the next year doubled.
Yeah.
It doubled. And so that let me know, okay, this is a business strategy that works for me, right? Tithing.
Yeah.
So thanks for that. So when all of this started, the whole Business Built by Faith brand, do you remember exactly how it transpired?
I do. We were at a Love Rekindle retreat.
That's right.
And shout out Margot and Antonio
Yes.
Taylor. And we went to one of our counseling sessions. And in that session, it was Pastor AC and Pastor Chris Scott that spoke a word over us. And they told us that we would write a book. We were like,
what?
Wow, write a book.
A book.
Okay.
She actually said a devotional.
She did.
She said specifically a devotional.
Yeah.
I said a devotional.
Yeah. And it took us a little while, maybe about 6 or 7 months before we actually came to grips with what the Lord was really trying to do in us. Yeah. And so we finally gave God our yes. And he also gave us the name, Business Built by Faith. Yeah. But let us know that was him, because our business was literally built by faith. And so it all just kind of worked together.
Yeah. I used to tell people all the time, I can teach you how to do what I do, but my strategy in business is God. My strategy is faith, and putting my faith in motion. And that's something that, that's a competitive advantage, I feel like, for our business and for us in business. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really how it all began. You're not from a business plan, but from a word really that God just that we just decided to act on, being obedient to what God told us to do.
Yeah. And when we wrote the devotional, it was the prayers, the scriptures, and the steps that we took to keep our business alive, to run our business, to market it, to grow it, and being able to take that when we've had like a rough month or something that was challenging, I go back to that devotional. I go back and glean from those prayers and scriptures, because that's how we build our business. And that process literally was the foundation for Business Built by Faith.
Yeah, I'll say this, that season taught us something. That we don't just survive a testing season. You come out of it stronger. You come out of it more refined, and just prepared for the assignment that you have ahead, because that was really just a lesson to get you ready for the next season.
It really is. And let me tell you, the lessons will lessen. And when you learn, and if you don't get the lesson, the Lord will take you back through it over and over again with different customers, with different people, until you get it.
Yeah.
Until you get it.
Yeah.
So
Shay, what started off as a devotional is now turned into so much more with Business Built by Faith. So what does the future look like for the brand?
Honestly, we got the prophecy that we were to write a devotional. And after we wrote the devotional, I really didn't plan on doing anything else with the brand, if I'm honest. But God had another plan. And I believe that this podcast is going to be the launch pad for all the different ways I want to continue to equip faith-driven leaders to build their ministries, to build their businesses. And even more than that, I want to share the testimonies and continue to share the stories and strategies that work for other believers. I believe that the enemy does this thing where he makes us feel like we're alone, like we're going through these trials by ourselves in entrepreneurship, because building a business is not easy. It takes work. So I see an entire future of us doing events, pouring into other people. You and I are not new to serving other people in this capacity. You've done a lot of coaching. I've done a lot of consulting. But I think that we never brought the faith and our belief system into it. It was always strictly business because that's how it was taught.
Yeah.
I think it's time for a new strategy, right? And this has been our strategy all along, and being able to share that faith, because that faith is a part of our business strategy.
Yeah.
And I think that more entrepreneurs need to understand that if you put God in your business and in your life, there is so much reward on the other side. There's so much impact to be made.
Man.
And I believe that we can encourage one another to continue building in faith and doing things and operating with integrity so that it can honor God, right? Because who wants to have a business and all this money and you're not honoring God? You're not a good person. You're not doing business right. I think these are important things to talk about as our brand continues to grow. Honestly, I'm on whatever God is on right now.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm just walking by faith. He took our hand and we've been running stints. We haven't come up for breath yet.
That's right.
So I think that I see the brand being able to reach more people and share more stories. Now, for you, now that we have Business Built by Faith, everything that led up to this point in business and your career, what do you think God was trying to teach you for a time such as this? Even the ordination, because that was a whole process too for us becoming ministers.
Yeah.
Everything leading up to now, what do you think God was trying to teach you?
Number one, don't give up. When things get tough, just instead of getting weary or seeking outside or whatever, lock in. Lock in with him and lock in with his vision, lock in with what he told us. Yeah. That's really all we have to go off is our faith in what God said to us. So we got it. And also we have to put action. It's good to have faith, but faith without works is dead.
That's true.
So if you don't put any action behind it, you're going to keep getting the same results. That's one thing I used to say all the time before too, was that, it's the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again, thinking that, you're going to get different results, So it was definitely locking in, keeping my faith in what he told us he was going to do, and putting action behind the faith, Amen.
Say that again.
Putting action behind your faith.
You have to put action behind that faith. Woo.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you something else too. Humility. Yeah. Humility played a big part, because you can get to a space in business or in life where, you think I've arrived and I'm here. I don't have to worry about this type of stuff no more. I'm better than this. I'm better than that. And God will show you real quick. Hey,
real quick.
It's not what you thought it was. I put like Mama used to say, I brought you in this world, I take you out of it. I gave you this business, I shut it down just as fast.
Yes.
So that was something I had to come to grips with. Not that I was haughty or anything like that, but that's something that God showed me that could happen if I allowed it to take place.
That's right.
So and then also God's timing is perfect, because it was so many things that I thought I should be over here. We should be at this level, or we should be over here by now. And God showed me through different things that if you'd have got there back then, you wouldn't be ready for where you're at now.
That's right.
Or you never would have, given me your ear to hear what I was saying to you if you was already over there. You needed to go through certain things to get to that place.
And we actually talk about this all the time. When we look back on when we gave God our yes and we went through ministerial training, would we have done that if we hadn't have come out of a season of famine?
That's right.
And I feel like God put us in that season because he wanted us to cleave to him.
Yeah.
We literally had no one else to depend on but him during that time. And I think that he did that so that we would be in that space so that he could use us for his glory.
How can you tell somebody else if it's goodness, or how can you tell somebody else how he'll bring you out if he never had to bring you out?
Because he will bring you out. Let me testify. He will bring you out, and he will deliver that business and bring forth the fruits of the labor that you have done. It is not in vain. Yeah. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, these seasons definitely taught us that faith is more than just believing that God is going to do something, right? It's putting things into action. So as we learn to trust his process, as we learn to do the things that he requires of us, what is some things that you can leave with the audience today that they can kind of implement or start doing as they're watching our episodes and as they're walking with us and building whatever they're building or maintaining whatever they're building?
I definitely say spend more time, dedicated time, with God, in your meditation time, and not just asking. Sometimes you got to be quiet and let him speak, because if you give him an opportunity, he'll talk to you. He will talk to you, and it's up to you to listen to what he's saying. It'll save you a whole lot of sleepless nights, stress and worry, if you give him opportunity to lead and direct you and allow your vision to come to pass.
That was good. That was a word. Word. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation. Demetrius and I are so excited. Every other session will be a Just Us session.
Yeah.
So we're going to take the limits off everything and have these conversations with just the two of us. We're looking forward to all of the guests that we have coming up.
Yep.
I'm really looking forward to their stories. We have some powerful entrepreneurs that are coming up on next episodes. So make sure that you are subscribed, that you like the channel, and that you meet us here every Wednesday at 7 p.m.
Yep. So you can connect with us at www.businessbuiltbyfaith.com, and you'll find the devotional, coaching and consulting information, resources that help you build boldly and lead faithfully.
And if you want to stay connected day to day, make sure you're following us on social media at Business Built by Faith.
Today's episode of Business Built by Faith is brought to you by Scale Logistics, a transportation provider specializing in high-value, AOG, and time-critical shipments for aviation and distribution companies. Scale is the premier choice in ground transportation and freight management. Learn more by visiting shipwithscale.com.
Business Built by Faith premieres every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this with someone who's ready to grow in faith and business.